the construction, manufacturing, and mining sector. This foundation allowed him to develop a deep expertise in financial management and corporate governance. With over 20 years of experience, he has developed a unique ability to combine strategic thinking with practical operational leadership. Today, Mr. Lim recognized for several core competencies, includes he oversees mineral resources and ore reserve reporting to ensure they meet the international JORC standards. He is an expert in ESG and sustainability integration, actively chairing committees for environmental investment, and he is leading the group's strategic expansion to gold and rare earth elements to ensure long-term growth. And then he also served as founder of MCRE Resources Sdn Bhd and act as council member of Malaysian Chamber of Mines. This evening, Mr. Lim will be sharing his practical insight on how ESG can move from compliance to competitiveness in real business operation. So now I will hand the virtual floor to over Mr. Lim Wei Hung to begin the session.
Thank you, for Myra, as well as Dr. Irene, and also I would like to take this opportunity to thank UMP for inviting me to share a bit of the insight and how we as a finance guy take a look at the ESG. Right. So let me share my screen. So okay, can you see?
Yes.
All right. Okay. That's good. All right. So basically, I know now it's really past 8 o'clock, and it's not an easy time for everyone, especially after a long working day and as well as after dinner. So I will make things simple for all of you. So this session is not really about the ESG theory or checklist. So let's make it something more lively. And this is to show how the ESG show up in the real decisions, real operation, and real trade-off inside a mining coal. So which is to most of the people, actually, this is something is very important. But before that, let us take a look at the agenda and the learning objective of today. So basically, is at the end of the day, is I hope that you all will be able to see the ESG from the lens of the business practices, okay, over and above of what you have learned in the class. And at the same time, is especially for you all that actually being exposed to the finance management part, I would like to share a bit of the similarities between ESG and enterprise risk management, because these two are actually interrelated, and by the end of the day, you are able to appreciate between what has been spelled in the enterprise risk management as well as the ESG. Okay, and the next part is that ESG in action. So the real operation, and it actually basically refers to what we already done. So is at the end of the day, is that it's not really something new, right? It's about the best practices and how you report what you have done, right? And of course, the last part is, but not this is the from the compliance to the real world value, right? So it's from here that we were able to see is how this thing is particularly work, because actually for myself, I'm before prior to the listing of Southern Line, I was not really exposed much to ESG, but after that, once we have gone through the listing process, okay, this is the ESG. Earlier on, you're just talking about compliances part, taking the checklist, so on and so forth. But after going through more and more, and when you are able to combine with what you have learned and what you have been practicing, then you will see very clearly. So ESG, is it something new? So it is a very common thing that everyone will be keep on asking themselves is whether this ESG is something new. The honest answer to that is no and yes at the same time. Okay, why I would say so is this: the idea behind ESG are not new. Companies always have to deal with issues like safety, pollution, labor practices, government rule and regulations, so on and so forth. And these are how decisions be made, because they are made based on, are influenced by all those factors that I have mentioned earlier. Okay, this thing existed long before the term ESG has been introduced. So bear in mind, ESG is not really something new. But what is new about ESG is that how these issues or these factors or matters has been structured, measured, compared, and openly scrutinized. So these are only the something news, right? So ESG turned what were once internal operation matters into external expectations that are visible to stakeholders such as investors, regulators, communities, and public. So over the past decades, ESG has become something very prominent, and yes, sometimes very loud because everyone keeps on saying ESG compliant, but sometimes is that we don't really know what actually compliance that you are talking about. Yes, amplified by investors, rating agencies, consultants, and the media. And because of this, to be honest, is that ESG is very big business, especially for the consultant, right? So it sometimes nowadays it feel like more like a buzzword than a discipline because everyone talking about, well, you want to show that you know a bit more, yeah, ESG compliance. So it's become a buzzword rather than a real disciplines that we really appreciate and we can tell in a much easier and layman terms. So this is where the idea of EGE comes in. So the conversations around ESG has in some cases moved faster than actual executions on ground. That's why I think you all might heard about like greenwashing, things like that. So it's a cosmetic things that people try to apply to what is not there, right? So that creates skepticism, especially among the public. So from the public point of view, ESG often look like companies talking about responsibility, sustainability, or value, while people are waiting to see how those claims hold up when something goes wrong. So now this is the key and this is the catch, right? ESG is not something that with that it will create additional value for you, but it's a problem that if you don't have it there, right? So we have to get it right when it comes to ESG. And this is an important point. The public does not judge ESG by report or framework. So, or sometimes we call it greenwashing. They judge by the behavior, especially during incidents, dispute, or crisis. Okay, so the real question is not whether ESG is new, but it's whether it has been overhit. The real question is whether ESG actually change how companies make decisions and runs their operation. I can bet if you it won't make so much difference. It's just because that ESG is there, but it only because that now we will have to do it in a more structured way and we will have to document it properly. And that is what we are focused tonight. How ESG move from being a concept and compliance exercise into something that genuinely shapes strategy and operation. So historically, foundations of ESG. How ESG principles like workplace safety, environmental matters, and ethical governance has been managed internally for decades. So it's not something new. But what make it new is because ESG evolved into an external expectation with standardized framework for measuring corporate responsibility. So this is something additional to what we have done previously. So ESG rise in influence bring opportunity and skepticism to gaps between reports and actual performance. And again, this is because of greenwashing, right? Because everyone's trying to greenwash through your report to say that how good you all are when it comes to the compliance. Then this is a very typical way for the corporate as well as some of the companies when especially like your bankers require you to submit your sustainability report or your multinational clients also requesting for the ESG compliance, stuff like that. So that is why it has an impact on the business practices. So the key question here is whether ESG truly guides corporate decisions and strategy in the modern era. And because of that, now it's become a boardroom issue. So it's at the board level issue. One of the critical objectives of the board is value creation, right? So every one of you at the MBA level or corporate finance level, you all know, essentially when it comes to the corporate finance, one of the main objectives is to create value for the organization. ESG didn't emerge because companies suddenly become ethical, right? So it is ironically, we will try to associate ESG with ethic, right? But it is not real on that. But because of transparency in the report, then people were able to judge you whether you are ethical or not, right? So it emerged because unmanaged, right? Unmanaged environmental, social, and governance risks could cause disruptions to the operation and starts to destroy value. So this is the catch. So in practice, ESG, to be honest, is it won't really say help you to create value, right? But without ESG, it may distort your operation and destroy your value, right? So because we all know when it comes to value, it is one way of it. We're talking about the valuation by virtue of discounted cash flow, MPV, right? And sometimes we are talking about because of the some intangible value that attached to your organization that it create values for you. So the value always associate with what? It will associate with your earning capability. So because of that, ESG failure to do so are expensive because, like it or not, it will result in distortions to your operation, suspension to your operation, which will affect your cash flow and reputation. So let's look at this part now. Why is a boarding issues? Both side and environment incidents. So now, if there was non-compliances or accidents, right? What will happen? The authority will come in and conduct the investigations. What's going to happen is it's going to disrupt your operation, right? What still is it might result in legal liabilities or reputational damage. So that going to affect because nowadays we are looking at is the entire supply chain. Your customer might not want to associate with someone that have poor safety result, for example, or have poor environmental record. So that is important, right? Because without that, it's going to damage your reputation as well as will open you up or expose you to the legal liability or the legal risk. So this is not a joke. So in this case, that's why what I mentioned earlier on was that you are not ESG compliance, it's going to cause problem to you, right? So that is the expectation and as the world change. So another part is community shutdown. Like for example, for us, the mining company, we operate a mine. So chances are we might have to pass through certain community areas. So you have the roads, everything. So you don't properly maintain the road or you cause dusty environment. So again, you will have a problem with the society, right? You lose your social license to operate. And what's going to happen is if they were to block the road, cut off the access, you are unable to go to your mine site. And that's going to cause a problem to your production or they'll block all your supplies to the site. So this is another thing is that it always, if you were to look at what I mentioned earlier on, means that it associates with the risk. That's why it's ESG and ERM or environment enterprise risk management are interchangeable. It's just that ESG will cover a bit more, which I will explain to you. So it's another one is why is boardroom issues is because if you don't comply with whatever regulatory requirement, the end result will be suspension. Again, like for example, for a mining company is that we are always associated with the damaging of the environment, destructions to the environment. So this is something very important because you need to have the EIA, environmental impact assessments to commence your operations. And in the EIA approval, there are thousands or hundreds of the conditions that you will have to apply to comply with. So if you don't comply with that, that would make, if it is something minor, it might cause you some penalties or fine. But if something major, then you might be suspended, right? So again, You don't do so, the risk is going to distort your operation. When your operation is distorted, it will affect your earning. And when your earning is affected, then it's going to cause your value, right? So that is also another important aspect that we have. The board always pay a lot of attention to. The next part is customer perception. Well, some of the customer, for example, like in the mining part. Okay, let's take at like for example, we're talking about diamond production, right? So I believe you all might heard about this blood diamond. And for the main producer or the main customer, right, who produce the diamond, they won't buy from the miners that may be classified as producing the blood diamond, okay? Because there will be a problems to their product because their customer will boycott, right? So again, this ESG compliance part is very important as well, especially for an industry that is a high value that the end user side actually has a very high level of conscious about the importance of the community protection, things like that. So customer perception is also equally important, and also not one part is the funding, because as you may aware that the bank always have the ESG department, right? If they were to perceive that if they were to perceive that yeah, your operation actually is not really ESG compliance or have the high risk of the ESG's breaches, then it might result in you will be restricted to the access to the capital. So that is again is no joke. That's why it's all these ESG become a boardroom issue, especially when you are dealing with the multinational customer, or you are dealing with a product that is sensitive in nature. So and therefore it is real something like the board will definitely going to pay attention, but just that sometimes we don't record it ESG, right? We will just talk about the important aspect of our business, but they are part of the ESG consideration. So now I know you all have gone through the ESG course, things like that, but let's put it in a very simple language, right? Because to me is that sometimes I might not able to comprehend too much the technicality of the language in the ESG, to be honest. So let's take it is that ESG is how a company manage non-financial risk that can affect its ability to operate, grow, and remain competitive over time, right? So it is often presented as a framework, a set. Yeah. So maybe for the student, you might want to mute your speaker. Thanks. So ESG is often presented as a framework, right? As a set of metrics or a reporting requirement, right? But to be honest, is that ESG is much simpler if you understand that. And what make it a bit challenging is because you need to report it, and in a way that people can compare it to other producer. So that is one, because sometimes is that you might need to put out a very beautiful language, right? So that is a bit tricky part. That's why we need to use the consultant. So like what I mentioned, that ESG is about company manage non-financial risk. So, but this risk, they don't risk sit neatly in one department. So it's not, oh, I have one ESG department and everything is settled. No, it doesn't work in that way. Like for example, environmental issues affect operations, social issues affect people, productivity and acceptance, governance affects how decisions has been made, challenge or corrected when things goes wrong, or and even how the government will look at you when it comes to the compliance part. So in another word, and very important part is that ESG is not separate from business. It is embedded in how business is run, right? So that is the most important part. So we don't make this ESG too complicated, right? It's not that as complicated as it is, but it's just a matter of how we run the company, or in another word, is that the best practices, right? And because this, why it's so important is because we need ESG will enable the companies to have the so-called the license to operate, and beyond that, it is also a license to be trusted, right? So that is the part, because without trust and confidence, or even mutual respect from regulators, employee, communities, and investors, a company may technically exist, but it cannot grow or create sustainable value. So because our aim here is to create value, so we do not want those stakeholders, they lost trust and confidence in us. So that's why is that because of they have their own expectation, with that expectation being incorporated into the principle or the framework of the ESG, then that is how the company will be able to report that result, what they have done, to the respective stakeholders. So when we talk about ESG, we are really talking about whether a company has the discipline and credibility to earn trust, not once, but continuously through its decisions and behavior. So, just now we mentioned about risk management. Then let us take a look at this ESG through the lens of risk management. Personally, to me, this is very important. We need to understand that the ESG through the lens of risk management, because it's through this part that I appreciate ESG more and better, because I think to most of the business communities, they are more acute to risk management, and I believe you all might have gone through the risk management, and it is much easier to study than this ESG. But with that better understanding and appreciation of risk management, I think you will be able to see this ESG much better. Having said that, now we clarified ESG in plain language. The next practical question to this is, how do we decide what actually matters to us, right? ESG, we're talking about so many things. What are these ESG? Yeah, environmental, social, governance. So which one are more actually matters to us, right? So no company, especially mining companies, can treat every ESG issue equally important, right? It can't be equally important. Time, capital, and management attentions are limited. So prioritization is essential. So there are many factors. If you want to say, no, I want to be full compliance with ESG, well, congratulations, you will end up with doing a lot of things, but at the end, you don't see the value coming from that. Just like in the risk management, issues that score high on both impact and likelihood demand the highest level of attention, right? These are what we call material ESG issues, right? So if say, for example, now it's monsoon time for us in the mining, what will be the risk? Okay. First thing is when we have the mining pit, right? It's a very deep hole. This type of rain, it can create a pond, right? So what's going to happen? It's going to affect all our mining activities, especially if now when we are doing the underground mining. So with that, we will view these weather factors is a very high risk factors, because the likelihood of the flood is also high. High likelihood, high impact, this one will give you a lot of attention. So what you need to do next is to address this. So this is ESG also associated with the risk management. So this is something like it's not something I would say is something new. It's just that when you are really understand the spirit and the core part of the ESG, and you'll be able to see in the lens of your operation, day-to-day operation. Once you accept this logic, ESG stop being overwhelming, because not everything is equally important. Now, another example is that when we were carrying out mining activities via open pit mining method, it means say that you do a lot of blasting, you do a lot of removal of the material, things like that. Environmental degradations together with the safety carry almost equal weight, right? So these two factors are equally important when it comes to the open pit mining. But when we transform to underground mining technique, safety is more important than environmental issue because now you have the people go inside the tunnel, right? You're dealing with something totally different. So ESG emphasis shift with the change in the way how we carry out the business. So again, it actually associate with the risk because if you don't do it properly, there will be a risk to your operation or distortions to your operation. So that is not something that we want. That's why I'm saying that this is not a new concept. It's just the same discipline that use the enterprise risk management applied to environmental, social, and governance factors, right? As Southern Lines, we use this approach to assess ESG issues, right? So we are using another lens, but obviously that ESG cover a bit more than that, right? Which I will explain a bit later. So when we evaluate the project, right? So when we evaluate the project, we will be looking at many aspects, right? So among them is that finance, operation, regulatory, reputation, and environment, and everything. So all these are the parameters that going to affect your feasibility study, right? So that is why is that we are saying is ESG are something that important in your decisions making, even at the boardroom level. And more importantly, is because of the risk part. It's just that something make ESG a bit more unique or how a broader aspect is because we are not only looking at the risk to the company, but ESG also look at impact caused by the company, right? Now, for example, if you were to carry out mining, okay, right? So if you don't have a proper dust suppression system, so it will result in a lot of dust. And this dust going to affect the health of your workers, and it might affect the surrounding community. So it actually beyond that the risk itself, but the impact of what you're doing, because ultimately that impact going to affect you back, and that is a vicious circle back to you. So that actually make the ESG a bit more comprehensive when it comes to the coverage over and above of the risk management. Right? If, because of we are looking at things like risk to the company and impact by the company to the environment or to the society. So when these two become material or the either dimensions is significance, the issue become more material and require management focus. One ESG issues are identified, the drive three things. Right? When we identify these issues, like for example, like to meet, like for example, in the case of the underground mining, right? Because we are talking about the safety issues, right? So then it will drive three things: where management attention goes, right? Where capital and resources are located, what got monitored, governed, and reported. So this will be things like, for example, going back to the underground mining, right? Because of the safety issues, now we are focusing on a lot of things. Like we're talking about the ventilations, we're talking about the safe operating procedures, we're talking about how do we manage the explosive, we're talking about how where are the emergency exit, things like that. So it becomes an area of the emphasis. So this shows how ESG moved from principles to practical decision. So now this is what we are talking about, the ESG and through the lens of the risk management, because we have something here, right? What add up in addition to the risk is will be impact by the company. So that is the one that make this ESG coverage a bit more. So that is where I pick out ESG more effectively, because as a finance and operation persons, I think it will be easier to understand this enterprise risk management, right, than ESG at the beginning. But once you start to see how these two relates to each other, and you will see the operational part of the ESG much easier, right? And it is part of what we are currently doing. And if you were to think back to your what your company is doing, you are able to pick up actually some of part of it are actually the ESG requirement part, and it's just a matter of how do we actually report those things back. So okay, next is we are let's talk about the compliance track. Most of the company actually, it just like me too, right? When we started the reporting on this ESG, or the corporate sustainability reports, we started as a compliance exercise, and during my earlier days, post listing, we took this ESG as taking the bosses and submit the report and move on, right? It's just part of the compliance that no one really like it, and you just take it as well, is something the exchange require from you. You just make sure that you have done this, done that, right? But as the time passes and the more you have progressed, you understand ESG reporting well, and you realize that it actually so relates to what you are currently doing. And it's just that because we don't really look at things more comprehensively, right? So that is why that is a problem. Let's look at that is the mentality part actually caused the most of the companies view this ESG as a compliant, and it will trap you. Let's look at first thing is the primary focus. So when it comes to the compliant threat, you will say, oh, we are meeting the minimum reporting requirements. But in actual fact is that we should have actually take it as integrating ESG into core business strategy. Right now, to share that with you, let's talk about, like, for example, rare earth mining, right, is a quite a buzzword in all part of the world, including Malaysia. So now, how do we make it as a strategy decisions or focus? Because it is the mining methods part that doesn't require the massive land clearing, right? Because massive land clearing is something a taboo when it comes to the public perception side. So that is how we manage that. So it add to you, because despite that by the nature of the money itself, or the mineralization itself, that require the inside to leaching method, but because we are able to do it in that way, and you will be able to promote, to showcase to the world, hey, come on, I'm doing things in such a way that I'm help you to preserve the minimize the damage to the forest ecosystem. So that is the strategic part, that if you were to do it, because when it comes to your business strategy, you always want to impress people, you want to impress upon the regulators as well as your customers. So this is the focus part, because you want to do something so that so impressively that there will be a reward back to you by way of approval of the licenses, by way of no distortions to your disruptions to your operation. So these are your primary focus. So now with that, then let's look at the second part that always fall into the threat, is like the approach, right? Now, if we're talking about the threat, is we just dig the box. But in actual fact is that it should be the proactive risk management and value creation. Why I would say so is, well, ticking the box is just on the paper, but the real aspect is that, have I done that? Because if I didn't do it, I will have a problem. Just like what we mentioned about the in the mining, you need to do the seed track, right? So yeah, so the question is, if you've done that, I've done that. But Do you actually mention that? Do you maintain it, properly maintain it, right? If you don't properly maintain it, there will be overflow. So it's as good as nothing. So that is the proactive risk management, that we look beyond just say, do you have it or you don't have it, right? So the another aspect is the outcome. So typically when it comes to like, if you have been trapped that this is something that I have to do, I just tick the box, I just do the superficial engagement, and there will be a limited impact, right? But if you were to do it properly, right, you like going back to the silk thread case, for example, okay? So you will maintain it properly, you will enhance resilience. So you don't have the overflow issues, right? You will create the trust. Oh, you at least when it comes to monsoon time right now, we the authority don't have to worry that the miner will release their tailings to the river, things like that. So it had the trust, and with that trust, with the resilience, then it will help you to improve your competitiveness compared to someone that not doing so. So in a way, is that like what I keep on saying, that if you don't do this, you have more to lose. But you do so, at least you maintain status quo to your operation, but with the respect, with the trust that the customer has with you, or the regulatory have with you, then you are able to venture into another area. Like for example, talking mining, I've done this part, I can go to another area, then I have lesser problem with that because of the trust that we build through the practices that we have, right? So it means that that is the strategy part of the ESG. And another part aspect is stakeholder perception, right? So when we keep saying someone like reporting like as though like they greenwashes their operations, so it actually creates the skepticism, and it may cause reputational risk, because nowadays is that why we want to have ESG, because we want to improve our reputations, and so that sometimes people may be saying that okay, your product can be sold at a premium, right? So you will risk that reputation, right? But if you were to do it properly, according to what actually is what you're supposed to do, not just to say, oh, I greenwash it, things like that, just window dressing. So if you were to do it properly, then you will increase or improve that credibility and also the long-term confidence, and that will help your business. Right, so that is the part, because value creation is something, sometimes certain part of it is actually is intangible, and you can't really see with your naked eye. It's through the actions that you have taken, and that's why is that in the finance part, or even the accounting part in particular, you have this good view, right? So good view is something intangible, but without that, it means that you don't have that kind of valuation, and people don't pay you that much, right? So that is the confidence that will help you to build that good view, right? So of course, another aspect is we are talking about the resource allocation. Um, the compliance trap that here we're talking about, we just focus on reporting and the compliance, right? But we don't really balance between compliance and operational integration, right? And like for example, now, when we say carbon emission, right? Carbon emissions is it actually come from the combustion engine. So like you have the truck, you have everything. So then we record that. So why this thing is important as well? Because don't you think that as a company, you would like to know how much diesel that you consume, right? Say for example, if I consume 1 liter of diesel to produce 1 ton of products. So that is the carbon emissions, right? No doubt is carbon emission. But the strategic part is this: don't you think that you want to set a goal that instead of using 1 liter to produce 1 ton, you want to reduce it to 0.8 liter to produce 1 ton? So again, this data gathering is important and is part of the business decision. So you set a standard, oh, I believe that I am able to reduce it from 1 liter to 0.8 liter to in order to produce the same output. So this is how we actually looking at that. So it's not just say, we just report it, submit it, end of the story. So you will have to see how is this integrate to the operation. So that's why is that more importantly is the embedding ESG rather than just ESG. So everyone can talk about ESG. So up to this point, we have thought about ESG as a concept, public expectation, and borrowing issues. So, but there is one thing that is very important for all of us to remember and to able to differentiate is between talking about ESG and embedding ESG, right? So embedding ESG means ESG is not treated as a separate exercise. Now that is very important. So it's not a separate exercise, nor a separate team or year-end reporting activity. Right. So because if that is the case, that we are just reporting ESG, but we are not embedding ESG in our practices. Okay. It means that ESG is considered the same time as strategy, operation, and capital decisions, not after those decisions are already made. Right. So you apply for approval. Okay, so it's guide the real trade-off between what is need to be done and what cannot be done. So that is something that we will have to relook at it, right? So that is the key part is embedding the ESG, right? So at Southern Alliance, ESG is embedded whenever question about environmental impact, safety, community acceptance, and government discipline are asked before projects are approved, not after problems are not after problems appear, right? So it means to say that, for example, now, if I were to say, I want to expand my mind, right? I want to expand my mind. I want to expand the area. So first thing first is that you will have to make sure that you are expanding within your tenement area. If you need to extend beyond the environment, your tenement area is you will have to apply, right? So it means to say that you will have to understand well on your the factors that affecting your operation, right? So is this ESG embedded in ESG? Yes, because you should not go encroach into outside your tenement area, right? So yes, so it become something, become your culture, right? I'll say it's become something like your culture so that you won't do something that is not proper, right? So this is what it mean by embedded. So in a nutshell is that ESG is not belongs to one department. You won't say ESG department. Well, if ESG sit only with sustainability or compliance thing, it will never change the behavior on the ground. Right? So now that's why now we say is that it is something I would say intangible, right? You won't see, but it is your behavior, how you get those things done, right? There must be a spirit, must be a good intentions to get all those things done. So in a mining context, it's because ESG failure are not abstract. They will stop your entire operation. It will cause damage. You will breach the trust, and worst part is it will take a long time to recover. So when you break these ESG expectations or so-called compliances, which is supposed to be embedded in your operations, it won't help you in the value creation, right? For a values to be created, you need to have a proper platform, and that solid platform will enable you to prosper. Right? If you don't have a proper platform, or in a way we can call it a culture, then that will be a problem because your reputation will be at risk. So that is the main part of it. So that's why is that to understand ESG, you will have to understand the risk part because ESG always associated with the risk. So let us look at this. How is this ESG creating value for the stakeholders? Now, I would like to take this example from the mining part. So first part is naturally is it will come from the activities that we will have to undertake to identify the presence of the mineralization, because when there is economic mineralization, there will only be a cash flow, right? So when you have the cash flow, and you will have the value, because I think all of you understand how is this NPV, net present value, work when it comes to the valuation, because and in the valuations of the mining asset, discounted cash flow is the fundamental part of it. So that's why is that when it comes to mining, we are very particular with the discounted cash flow, right? And this discounted cash flow, in fact, it is the final product of the valuations of the mine, and it actually incorporated a lot of things which I will share with you later on. So now, for example, when it comes to to the mining, right? So first is that we are doing the exploration, right? So it has a lesser part of the impacts toward the environment, because we just talking about exploring, so without affecting the environmental that much. Okay, so now only after when we have done the exploration, right, we will have to say, okay, now what, whether are we going ahead with the operation, right? If we have decided that, okay, now it has a value, right? It's through the what we call pre-feasibility study or feasibility study that we have carried out through the exploration. Then you see, now it has a value. So it's part of this. We reproduce our own discounted cash flow. Okay, we reproduce our discounted cash flow. Then you apply for the licenses. More importantly is environmental impact assessment. Now, we don't underestimate this piece of document. I think most of the people, they will say, well, this just a compliances part, you can just copy paste and submit. No, because in this EIA, if you have actually ever read that, you will see at the end part of it is they will be comparing between the economic value arising from the project versus the monetary loss from the environment impact, right? So now this is very important. Why I say so is because now, if, for example, through the exploration, and this is a real example that we have gone through in the for a gold project. All right. So it is in the forest reserve. We actually carry out the exploration, right? And we established that that resource is X ton, right? So the question now arises is, does it worth for us to produce X ton that will have that environmental impact of so much? Because in the EIA report, it will have something like that. So that was, I'll say, maybe 10 years back. So during them, the economic value of the gold is slightly lower. I mean, I think maybe it's just 50% of what the gold price is now like. But during them is that if you were to look at the gold value by then, so the environmental cost that impact from this activity is quite not too far out. So it means to say that, yes, I can continue to do so to proceed with the mining, but at the end of the day is that the value that you get from this mine, it won't be as much as what you expect, because there are a lot of problems that you're going to face with the environmental. So for the same problem, unless you say that I am getting higher value for that, okay? Otherwise, you don't really want to, because of so little revenue or value that I'm going to get from this part, I'm going to face this type of problem, right? So this is a very common way for laymen to really understand that, but that is some ESG part that we're looking at that. That's why is that why we say so, because it has lower NPV. right? And because for a risky project, naturally you will have the higher discounting factor or the discounted rate. So that is how we values the project, right? Because when you study your this financial management, so when you're talking about the how do you value a project, so sometimes you might use the CAPM, capital assets presence model, so you will have the risk-free factors. Oh, so those are things that we do use in life, no? So it's not something like well, it's so academic. Yes, it is academic for sure, but at the same time is applicable, especially in mining, right? And you won't be surprised that the best um cash flow projections profession is not accountant, it's mining engineer, right? They are required to produce something um like that to justify the value. But of course, when it comes to our valuation, it's slightly different. So for the valuations of the mine, we don't really have the ESG cost, but if the risk is perceived to be high, then you will end up with higher discounting rate. So that going to affect you if you perceive certain aspect of the ESG is high, then because of the risk factors getting higher, then you will have a premium for that risk. Then as a result of that, you will have the higher discounting rate, and therefore you have lower NPV, or even you have no NPV at all, right? So that is why it's that when it comes to mining, we were that particular with the NPV, because that going to affect your value. So what do we believe in ESG? What do Sam believe in ESG? So in another ways, this is also another a layman term, right? Because actually mine is not wrong. Because just we don't show what we're doing right, people will think we are not doing enough. Right, so this is what I shared during the recent Malaysia Chamber of Mining conference. So we are sharing with the general this public as well as some of the smaller mining company about this ESG reporting, right? Because money is not wrong. It's just that if you don't show that what we are doing right, people will think that we are doing not good enough, right? So meaning say that it takes strength and courage to share openly what we have done, where we have done well, and where we still fall short. That's why that part is the reporting that we needs to present. And always the challenge part is that in the ESG reporting is first thing is how you have to identify your what really matters to you, or we call material factor. And the second part is the how do you compile your data, right? And this data supposedly must be something reliable. And eventually, when the country progresses, those data may subject to audit in the future, right? For those bigger companies in the boost, or even in the SGS or Bursa, eventually they will have their data to be reported, right? So that is what we are saying is why ESG to Sam is important, because we believe that in ESG, that's how we see it and how we live it and why it matters for the value creation. Let me start with this again. It's just it's something like a storytelling, right? Because when it comes to like a company, right? As a company, so we will have to tell the people, all right, what, especially in the mining, okay, our story clearly and honestly, right? And as to what we can improve, because you will have to report, you have to present your data, and you will have to present and report whatever thing that you have done, your commitment according to or align with international standards or expectation. So therefore, it is not really a compliance obligation to us. We embedded that in our decisions making, our operation and our strategy. And sometimes it's because because we don't really understand in depth of the ESG concept, and therefore you would think that you did not really apply the ESG standards. But after these sessions, I hope that you're able to really see and think back to bring back to your company context and see how are you going to relate that. So for us at SAM, we always see that because we dealing with a lot of people. We are dealing with the government, we are dealing with the surrounding community, and therefore we look at ESG as a license to operate, a license to be trusted, and ultimately a requirements for creating sustainable value, right? Because if you lose any part of that, then you break the trust, right? Because trust, confidence, and mutual respect from our regulators, communities, employees, and investors are not optional, right? They are preconditions for growth and long-term success. So, for example, ESG consideration influence government. Okay, we ensure compliance, tax contribution, and long-term economic benefits. Because if the government believe that, oh, you guys are trying to evade the royalty, so what is going to happen? They will impose a lot more conditions on you that may make your operations not sustainable, right? And employees. Now, you need to provide a conducive, safe, and healthy working environment with fair play, right? Because if we don't pay them properly, right, and chances are they will leave, right? If you don't train our employee, you don't get the productivity. But you don't have the productivity, then that will goes up. Your cost will goes up. So again, these are the part because now Malaysia now we have evolved. We are no longer as a cheap labor manufacturing country, right? So you need to compensate that increase in the salary with the increase in the productivity. So that's why is that we are dealing with the human, and this part is a social, right? ESG S here, right? Is a social. Social is not only talking about the surrounding, but also talking about our own employee. So if you have like if you don't focus on the health and safety on site, if accident were to happen, your workers will be affected, and chances are your mind will be suspended. And how will the rest of the worker look at you? Right? So that is very important and it's common, right? Just that if we don't uh, relate this to the ESG concept, then you will look at it as otherwise. So also the communities, like what I mentioned earlier on, is that because we are operating within the community, so therefore we will have to respect them. We will have to make sure that our activity does not impact them that much, or if we can impact them on positive side, like providing them the economic opportunity, that will be of the great help because it will help to build up the reputations and mutual respect, right? So even with the suppliers, so they are also equally important and affected because we do hopes to build up the local economy, right? If everything you were to import, then it means say that your activity doesn't create that much of economic benefits to the local society as well as to the local supply, right? So by embedding ESG in strategy, we set clear priorities, we measure progress, ensures that decisions are aligned with both financial returns and broader societal value. So this approach allow us to transform ESG from compliance obligation into a driver of competitiveness advantage because companies that deliver tangible value to all stakeholders are more resilient, investable, and trusted. Because most of the companies that when we talk about ESG, chances are they are the Lisco, for example. So for the Lisco, we are looking at is that for the shareholders to invest, right? For the investor to invest in your company so that it will enhance your value. So those investors will be looking at a lot of factors nowadays. So it is a buzzword. Unfortunately, that everyone say, okay, I will look at your ESG. So ultimately, the success of our strategy is measured not just by profit, but also how well we deliver value and trust across to all our stakeholders. Because now, if people have no faith in you, right, even you have the profit, so people won't be investing in your company. So you will have the situation like some of the certain companies may have a very high price earning ratio, and some company may have very low price earning ratio, and but does not attract the kind of interest from the investors. So those are a lot of factors. That's why is that, so when it comes to your stage as an MBA student or as a financial management student, so we will have to look at is that the value creation is not really just figure per se. There are a lot of those intangible factors, like in accounting, we have these goodwill or intangible assets that actually enhance their valuations. So in short, in SAM, our belief is simple. Mining is not just about extraction. When ESG is embedded, it's become part of sustainable future and a way to create real value for the company, our stakeholder, and society. So ESG is not new. Again, is that it's just better organized, right? Now, let's move from the strategy to operations. Okay, where ESG become very real and very quickly. In finance, value creation is closely linked to the timing and reliability of cash flow. All else being equal, the earlier and more uninterrupted cash flow, the higher is the present value, right? So in ESG, in mining, in mining, ESG directly affect both the timing and continuity of cash flow. That's why ESG operation does not start at production, right? It starts as early as exploration, right? The number one. So when we say so is that first thing before we really go inside, like I mentioned earlier, we do the desktop studies, we go to the field to do evaluations, and with that gather, we see whether or not there are the presence of those mineralizations are there, and therefore we should proceed with the further works by doing more study through like drilling exercise, things like that. So only when we are able to establish that there is a value, only then we'll do more things, like for example submit our EIA applications, and or rather to carry out the EIA exercise to ensure the positive net benefit before mining begin, right? So this is a real part that is we are doing according to the best practices or the economic aspect, right? So that we don't waste the money. Okay, so it means say that in fact there is a ESG compliance, right? It's not something new. It's just that we don't know how to. We did not really present it in a way that it should be, and people don't really know about it, all right? So borrowing from what we thought earlier on the discounted cash flow with ESG integrated, exploring is where mining company invest heavily with no guarantee of success. So when exploration results are positive, then we do more and to define resource, and that actually is they shape how stakeholders assess the project from the very beginning. So when potential economics are clearly understood, then EIA, right? And because when we study that in great detail, so we expect lesser conflict, right? When we start the operation, and fewer conflicts mean smoother operations, permitting fewer delays and greater operation predictability. So that is really to affect the cash flow. And by doing so, you are able to bring the cash flow inflow much faster, and therefore it will improve your DCF, right? So now it doesn't end there. It means that, oh, I want to start it earlier, right? And it also means that when you carry out the mining activities responsibly and applying the sustainable mining practices, you also build confidence amongst the public authorities, communities, customer, and other stakeholders. So this confidence is not abstract. It's translated into smoother engagement, stronger leadership, and reputation resilience. And that actually going to reduce the possibility of the option interruption. With that, that's going again, make sure that you won't have you will have uninterrupted cash flow, cash inflow. So in short, ESG embedded in operations protect value by reducing disruption and enhance value by accelerating the path from explorations to production. And in capital intensive industry like mining, timing and content matters, right? So this is what we are doing, right? How it helps, right? So the challenge most of the time is that we don't really know what are we going to report, right? So when you don't know what are we going to report, that is the material factors, then you don't know what data to collect. Because don't feel for a lot of data are already there. Like for example, fuel consumptions, right? So and things like, for example, you are talking about the even tire consumption, right? Because it can be in functions of the mileage, right? So those are the things that these data are essential, but because we don't know what are we going to report and we don't set a target, so it's not only collect the data, but you need to set a target. So when you set a target from the operation perspective, is we're talking about the operational efficiency. So that also going to help you to create to reduce your cost. When you reduce your cost, it means to say that we were able to improve our profit, and therefore valuation. It's just unfortunately is that we don't value our business on day-to-day basis using the DCF, right? And you will only see that when it comes to like certain valuations, or you intend to dispose of your business, right? So these are something that we will have to make sure that we have our own targets to achieve. So okay, we are coming to the last few slides, and these are the part that actually is extracted from this GRI 14, right? GRI 14 is a reporting standards generally used by a lot of mining companies, and these are what the elements within the environmental stewardship, right? So let's take a look at the environmental components, right? So I just select a few things. This is just to share with you all on the operational aspect, the operational experience of us. So environmental emissions management, right? So people will definitely demand us, right? It will be demanding us to monitor to reduce greenhouse gases, right? Okay, this part, yeah, I think you will be talking about two sophisticated greenhouse gases, or rather we can say is the gases that you produce by your engine, right? So we put it in that way. So that is going to cause no problem because it's so smelly, right? So that is part of it, that they say you must make sure that you don't emit that much of greenhouse gases, to be more sophisticated in that way, right? And water conservation, water management practices, including treatment system, recycling initiative, monthly water sampling, all those things actually has been done. All right, so it means to say that we make sure that the water quality that been disposed of, or we try to reduce the usage of the water from the riverside, so which might affect the livelihood of the people surrounding. Those are important. And biodiversity, right? Because we how we value the environmental, also including the biodiversity protections. And you, when it comes to the open pit mining, you naturally is going to clear a lot of lands. And if you are able to identify some of the certain species are very rare, so we need to take our own initiative to make sure that we address it properly, right? And land rehabilitation. So at the end of the mining cycle, you have to make sure that you have a comprehensive system to rehabilitate the land, because obviously you can't restore the land, but you try to minimize the impact. And now I think one of the best example is I think you can see at your Gambang, okay, your Gambang campus. This what's that? Mangala Resort, right? That area actually it was an S mine area, right? It's a Ting mine. So with the creativity of the entrepreneur there, so they turn it into a resort. So and they are able to promote the area as to one of the best successful rehabilitation story of the ash mining land. So those are the things that really help, and these are something that people will be asking from you. Social responsibility. So when people hear socials in ESG, they often think of a charity or CSR activities. In in mining, social responsibility, excuse me, is far more practical. It is about relationship, safety, and productivity. Social risk, if excuse me, social risk, if unmanaged, show up very quickly as operation disruption, work stoppage, accidents, or community opposition. Okay, all of these affect cash flow. So, community engagement. As software and lens mining, community engagement begins with listening, right? We engage early and continuously surrounding communities. And in this case is that we are passing through a plantation. So we have a frequent discussions and engagement with the estate manager, and to understand the concern related to dust, water quality, noise, and daily impact. So when we do so, by addressing this issue proactively, whether through a better dust suppress system, water monitoring, or support for local infrastructure, we reduce that misunderstanding and conflict. So fewer conflicts means fewer delay, smoother permitting, or an uninterrupted operation. And more importantly is that your objective is to make sure that there is uninterrupted operations. So from a value perspective, community trust protects timeline, and timelines protect cash flow, right? The next element is worker safety. So safety is non-negotiable, right? Regular emergency response drills, regular emergency response drill, and fire safety training reinforce a simple truth. Safety requires constant vigilance. So in our Chama, we used to have we have yearly safety program which it will involve a bomber and everything to make sure that okay, how do we address an emergency situations, right? When something happen. Right, so it will practice us, make us more well aware, and we also educate. We have to educate our staff force to make sure that they focus on their safety. So because beyond moral obligation to protect people, safety failure result in downtime, investigation, reputational damages, and high insurance and compliance costs. So again, is that it's not to say that because we got worried about this, but obviously it's like every one of you, we would like to go back safe, right? So that is a very important obligation of a company. So a safe workforce is a productive workforce. fewer accidents mean less destruction and higher operation efficiency, and which will directly support your financial performance. And at the same time, is that when it comes to the workers, we have to make sure that that there is a skill development. Mining is not just talking about machine; it's about people operating those machines. We invest in skill development so that our workers grow together with the company. Because a better trained workers improve efficiency, reduce error, and of course, reduce your maintenance costs and optimize resource use. So all the time, this part will help you to lower operating costs, improve productivity, and enhances operational resilience, or which supports stronger and more predictable cash flow. Again, that actually associate with your cash flow, right? Fair employment and workforce stability. And another important social dimension is fair employment, right? Competitive and fair pay packages, clear career pathway, and respectful workplace practices reduce turnover and labor instability, right? Because in mining, so it is not easy to get people. So naturally, is that this part is also our obligation, because the lesser is the turnover, then the better is for us, right? And is for the company too. So social responsibility is not separate from performance, right? So engagement, community engagement reduce conflict, worker safety reduce downtime. So all this part actually it played an important role. So yeah, it's something that you all know, right? But this part of the S factor when it comes to the ESG understanding. So the last part of it is that the governance, right? If environmental and social elements are about what we do, governance about how we decide, how we behave, and how we are held accountable. Right? So governance is an operating system of the ESG. Without it, environmental and social initiatives become inconsistent, reactive, and symbolic. So, at Startup Alliance, governance is our license of trust with regulators, communities, investor, and our own people. So there are many elements here. So I think I won't go in details, because I believe that in your studies you might have studies like transparency, integrity, accountability, and the decision. So let's make it simple for everyone. Okay, so we are coming to the last few slides here. Reporting as a strategic bridge. So even if when a company is doing right things, operationally, the result often take time to show up in the financial statement. So that is without doubt, right? ESG improvement in the safety environment management, community trust, and may take months or years to translate into measurable outcome. But this create a gap between what has been done and what is being seen. But reporting bridge that gap. So that is important. Because it is important for us to report what we've done, so that the stakeholders will see that what we have done. That's why this is the part that always making ESG reporting a bit more difficult, because sometimes is that we really don't know what to report. But based on what we mentioned earlier now, is that these are our target. That is what we are reporting, and you will need to have a good skill in the reporting, but we don't really need to be like having those very bombastic kind of reports, right? So what it's just that we need to make sure that our shareholders understand of what we have reported, what we have done. It shows the risk management and cost control, therefore building confidence for funding and access to capital. And this reporting also is equivalent, equally important to regulator, because when we are able to tell all those non-compliances part when it comes to the compliance with the law and regulations, that shows the transparency, and with that it actually ensures smooth oversight and operations part. So that again will help us in the to convey to the regulator as to what we have done and how to increase or improve their confidence. And to the buyers is that also it proved that we meet the ESG standards, because sometimes the buyers they will say, okay, we are the ESG compliance part, so I would like to know to what extent you comply with your the ESG compliance. So that will to them, to the buyer, it will help to reduce reputational pressure in that supply chain. So as a company, we also have to make sure that we address that concern, because if you don't do what your customer want, you will end up with nothing, because you are relying on your customer for sales, right? So that again, that is value creation, whether you like it or not. This is something that's comparing with someone that does not produce ESG report or sustainability report, so you have a better chance to scale sales. So that actually makes the difference when it comes to nowadays business environment. So against to the communities, it provides transparency and reassurance of the whatever we have done, the company has done, that will have the impact on the environment and social, right? So we are coming to the almost the last part of it. So naturally is that when it comes to the reporting, you must speak in the same language, and there are quite a number of standards there. I believe you all might have gone through it. So that is to make sure that it is consistency and comparable when it comes to the reporting. So right. So I think I've been talking for quite a lot. So just to wrap up is that let's bring together under the term of our sessions from compliance to competitiveness. At Software Alliance, ESG is not a separate exercise like what I keep on mentioning. So it's embedded in strategy, operation, governance, and reporting. So that is something that we always have to remind our operations people and every one of them that your duties actually has embedded with the ESG compliance part, which we all the while we never tell it very specifically, but if you do so, and that goes to enhance and add value of that. So strategy ensures that ESG is part of decision making, linking risk and opportunity to long-term value creations. Because when we have with the right mentality, with the right culture and approach, and it will definitely helps in value creations. But sometimes that value creation is not that straightforward to say that when I do so, because you might be affected by the market conditions, the market price, and when the price drop, or your opinion face some difficulties, then that is part that you might not get the values that despite your so-called certain ESG compliances. But again, is that without the ESG, you're going to have a much more problem with, especially with the interruptions to your operations, right? So I think with that I will end this talk. So thank you everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lim, for the insightful and practical sharing. We are truly appreciate the time and experience you have shared with us this evening. So I believe the session has given us clear understanding on how ESG is applied in real industry practices. Right? We will now move on to the Q&A session. So if you would like to ask a question, maybe you can type your question in the chat box, or maybe you can unmute your microphone and ask question directly. Okay, so let us begin with the first question, maybe. Anyone?
Hi, Mr. Lim.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have one question for you. This related to your experience. You said ESG is not new and just a better organized. But in your journey, what was the hardest habit or process that you need to change to organize ESG better? And how did you overcome the resistance to change that process or the habit lah? That is my question.
All right, thank you. I think that is very valid question, and this is very practical. To be honest, is that when I firstly exposed to ESG, I can tell you when the moment you read the whole standards, you are lost, and then you regret it and say, why should I get involved in that, right? So yes, first thing is you need to be persistent, but just that you might need to change a bit of your approach to really understand the fundamental part, just like I mentioned just now. So if you're able to look at the broader aspect of the ESG, and you're able to relate back to your activities. And more importantly is that you will have to understand that material factors, because not everything in the ESG you need to report. So it is certain things that are relevant to your operation, to your company. And it's from there that you will say, okay, let us focus on this part and this part, and what are the data that relevant to this reporting. So, and then what will be your next target. So that is from there that you will start to appreciate more, rather than just say, wow, this ESG as a concept is a framework that you definitely going to have I would say tough time, because as a working adult, right? I think is after those long hour works, you try to take a look at the ESG understanding, is going to be a nightmare. But if you're able to relate, make it simple, understand the material factors, and look at your operation and your reporting, then it will help you a lot.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim, for your answer.
Welcome.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Lim.
Good evening.
I'm Hafizan, MBA student in the financial management subject. Okay. First of all, I thank you very much for your insightful sharing. I really appreciate the way you explain ESG from the practical and operational perspective, especially in the mining industry. So, my question is, from your experience at Southern Mining Alliance, what was the biggest challenge when transitioning ESG from a compliance-driven approach into being truly embedded in daily operations and decision making? Was it more related to cost considerations, or organizational culture maybe, or maybe resistance to change within the operations?
So I think the main challenge is that when we try to sell the understand or the concept of the ESG to people, so generally it just like myself, is that when I firstly required to report ESG, I'll just say, well, this is very big headache thing, right? So I think as if you take the lead in the ESG reporting part, so you will have to try to make it simple and simpler to your colleagues to understand, that as to why we are saying ESG is so simple, because they're embedded, right? It's part of the practices. Just that we have to make sure that this practice is we just document it down, or as to what are the expected outcome and what are our target. For example, is this what part of our target or so-called KPI under this ESG is that we try to source for 90% of our purchases from the local supplier, right? So that is the part, because we want to improve the local supply chain, and that also will help the economy aspect. So, but again, is that you will have to be realistic with the nature of your business, because not every companies are the same, right? Because like for example, if I were to import a lot, so then we might have to consider whether or not there are alternatives to that import, right? So that is you will have to set your target. So we don't really sell the ESG as something so technical to our people. It is because those working adults typically they including me, I would say that I don't like to learn something new, right? And you try to tell me something so difficult to understand, right? So we make it simple. Okay, now this is what we are currently doing, and I need this type of report from you to enable us to look at it. Because like for example, you were to evaluate your your supply evaluation. Those are part of what you are doing now, right? So that is something like we can get from those data to build out our reporting.
Thank you, Mr. Lim.
Welcome.
Hello, Mr. Lim. Hi.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Nashada. Previously, I'm working at mining company, and I have a few questions to ask. First, how do mining company balance the environmental protection with the production efficiency? Second, which environmental risks, for example, carbon emission, or water usage, biodiversity loss, are the hardest to mitigate the practice? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So your first question is talking about sorry. Can you repeat your first question?
About the environmental part,
Yep.
how to balance the environmental protection with the production efficiency.
Okay. So I think in this aspect is that, as you know, in mining part is typically we will have the mining engineer before we commence the mining activities, we will have to come up with the design, right? The mine design. So mine design will take into considerations of the best possible extractions rate and with the lower what we call stripping ratio. Particularly, I think you are talking about the open pit mining. So that will become your standards, or become your budget. Okay. So now, when it comes to the real mining activities, then obviously things might change, but we will have to record down why are we changing to that the design, to the original design. But if we don't have the design, then you can't measure it, right? Because operational efficiency is always that you need to have a baseline, and from that operations, when you carry out or executing your plan, and you will have to benchmark against or match against what you have designed. Because when it comes to mining, a stripping ratio is very important, and you exceeded certain stripping ratio, then it will become inefficient when it comes to the cost. Okay, so and again is this the efficiency part is that typically we will say in the mining terms, we always say excavator to truck ratio, right? So based on the nature of your operation, if one excavator can serve 5 trucks, you were to serve 6 trucks, then it becomes inefficient. So those are the part that the mining engineer will have to come up with, and your site supervisor will have to execute according to that. So one way you can see is that, for example, you were to visit the mine and you see either truck is waiting for excavators for too long, or excavator waiting for truck too long, that shows inefficiency, right? So then that will result in a part is your carbon, right? Carbon emissions. And we don't really measure the carbon emissions, but typically we will convert the fuel consumption into the into carbon emissions. So again, is this when we say we want to reduce it, there are two ways about carbon reductions here. Is the first part is we are talking about the machine efficiency, right? So for example, if you were to use your truck were maybe more than 10 years old, so it will emit more emissions than the normal truck, and the newer truck may be more efficient. It can run maybe 20 trips a day within 8 hours, but the older truck can run only 6 trips. So that is part of the when you monitor the operation statistic, it will tell you on that. Right, so that also will help when it comes to the target to reduce the carbon emissions. And so because fortunately is that in Malaysia we yet to have this the carbon tax only apply for certain industry, not the mining part yet, but in the more developed countries that the more you emit the carbon, the more you pay for the tax.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim.
Mr. Lim, here we have 2 participants. I think maybe we can go for Dr. Norwazli first. Boleh, okay?
Okay, good evening, Mr. Lim.
Good
I'm
evening.
Noor. I'm the lecturer for corporate governance class for my MBA. So just now, first of all, thank you very much for your great session and insightful. And earlier you just mentioned about the long term, okay, the value creation of the companies. But from your observation, okay, from your throughout your experience, uh, what do you think about the board of directors decision, okay, in terms of the execution and operationalization of ESG practices, especially when it comes matters on investment priorities, cost considerations, and also the long-term value creation? Because as we know, when we involve or when we practice on ESG, it involved with a very high cost investment on the company. So what do you think will be the decisions from the board of directors?
Yeah, I think in this aspect, thank you, Doctor. So I think this is it really go back to the real practices. That's why the corporate governance in this aspect is very important. And in the corporate governance, one part of it is we always looking at the board compositions. So because like for example in mining, all right, if we don't have the mining engineer or geologist as a board as the directors of the board, and then that's going to be tricky. Just like for us, but because of we have accumulated sufficient experience in the past, so we should be able to make certain decisions. But again, that decisions will have to be supported by professional services or reports. Like for example, now when we say whether or not this mine is after the exploration has been done and then the results are there, so whether or not is viable, we need a feasibility study to be prepared. And you don't just get like for example we are asking say supervisor to prepare feasibility study, right? It must be prepared by competent person because they have to factor in a lot of factors. So this is the tricky part, is that some companies, they don't value it. They don't value the importance of feasibility study because they just say, okay, I rasa boleh buat, kita buat. Okay, so they skip that. But if the outcomes are positive, then naturally they will get the result. But in most of cases, if you don't carry out a proper feasibility study, you have more chances of failure. So when there's a failure, it depends on the magnitude of the investment. So it can be it can be a disaster to the company. So in this aspect, is the board composition, I believe is very important. You must have a good mix of the board compositions. And at the same time, is that because I don't think that all the board members could be competent in certain aspect of it. So naturally is when we present certain investment, particularly something that is of high risk, that you definitely need to get the professionals to prepare the paper. And some wants to prepare the paper itself also, I would say, insufficient. Then you might need to have like aspect in this aspect. I think the finance team is very important because they should be able to identify the risk and take a look at the assumptions, because at the end of the day is that you are the end product of the feasibility study report, it will be your discounted your cash flow statement, right? The discounting cash flow. So it's from there that we are able to see whether or not this venture has the is worth consideration. But again, is this I will add that we might want to have introduce the element of the what if analysis, right? Because like for example, in our reporting, when we are reporting for a reserve, so we are following the international standards. They call Joint Oil Research Committee. They will have a various scenario. So they will run some price, the sensitivity analysis. Like for example, what if the price goes down by so much? What is your cost go up by so much? Or what is your discounting rate goes up by so much? So that will provide the board with the sufficient information. So in this case, that the board not only looking at the composition, it has to make sure that we have a strong management team. Because if you don't have a strong management team, how do you expect the board can be fed with the necessary information for decision making?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim, for your
Welcome.
insightful. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next we can go to Kintara.
Okay, hi, good evening, Mr. Lim. Thank
Good
you so
evening.
much for your sharing just now. Okay, in terms of, I just want to ask in terms of support staff. We know that support staff have difficulty to understand uh, the wide understanding on the ESG perspective. So for the support staff itself, as a COO of the company, how do you help them to understand their role in the ESG implementation in your company, as it helped to reduce risk and cost for the company? I mean the ESG implementation. So how the support staff can understand their role in order to help the practice efficiently implemented in the company. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's why is that um the best person is we should ask the finance team to talk in the plain language and in the layman term, right? Because you have like a ESG manager, they will tell you all those bombastic technical stuff. So it goes back to what I shared just now is that what are our materiality factors, right? Or what are the factors that of our concern. For example, let's use back the example that, okay, one of our goal is to reduce the they call greenhouse gas emission, right? GHG. So wow, you tell the workers on site, they say, what is GHG, right? So now I say, no worry. What I'm telling you is this. Okay, first thing is you are driving I'm expecting you to pump diesel, okay, every day, okay, provided that you are able to run 6 or 7 trip a day. Okay, this is my target for you. Okay, so and not every trip, right, is half full. It must be full trip, right? So if your truck can take, say, 15 tons, make sure that you don't carry 10 tons. Okay, so that is the easiest way to explain that to like supporting stuff, because you tell them ESG, forget about it. So you tell them, okay, now is you have to make sure that, okay, you carry 15 tons. So excavator operator, make sure that you load how many buckets, because you say, mana saya tahu pakai mata macan, mana nak tahu, right? So, okay, 5 bucket, 6 bucket, things like that. So we have to come down to a levels that when we tell something to them, they're able to understand. That's why is that you can't get a consultant to do it for you. You need to get someone within your organizations that understand that in a plain language. That's why just now I keep on sharing is in a plain language, so that people can understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Lim.
Okay. Maybe we can.
Good evening. My name is Suhaimi. What I know, mining is very risky in terms of operation. I would like to know what is your real experience in handling the worst incident or accident during the operation, and how much the cost to cover the reputation or mitigate the effect of that accident. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So, okay, so this is also ESG questions, right? And in this case, is the S issue, so social. And in this part is that, okay, for mining, and I believe in many businesses, especially when it involves the usage of machinery, you tend to have the safety officer, right? So for us, it's mandatory to have safety officer to establish the safe operating procedure. It will define, okay, when you want to do this thing, what you need to do first. Like, for example, you want to start a machine, what you need to do first, okay, before you operate your truck. So I'm talking about talking about this, I'll say near miss incidents, right? So one of the things is that because we are doing the underground mining, and at our mine is a high wall. So during the earlier days is because there are some loose rock. So every blast in the tunnel actually will cause some of the rock to fall. So those are the typical I would say a problem that faced by open pit mining that turn into underground. And therefore what we need to do is we have to make sure that any loose rock that's hanging there, if we are able to access that with the machine, we have to make sure that we fell them down first. So obviously you will need to install some of the safety buffer, safety net, things like that. So those things happen. We see with our own eyes. So we naturally we have the safety operating measures that okay how and at what time, and means that every blasting time is how you need to evacuate the area, and what would be the safety buffer zone. You need to get the engineers to calculate the rockfall radius, things like that. Right, so it means to say that in every aspect is it depends on your operation. Like for us, we definitely needs to have the safety officers for that matter. So safety officer will have the biggest power. They can bar you from entering the site. They can even suspend your operation. Then can suspend you from driving. So they have the I'll say they are the boss on site lah.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, due to the time constraint, maybe we can have another one last question, if any. Okay. No more, is it?
It's too late for everyone. Some more raining. Everyone's thinking of going to bed.
Okay, in that case, if no more question, maybe I can wrap up our talk today. So all in all, I can say that Mr. Lim have highlighted that EST is not something that different from the industry. It's actually need to be embedded together in order to become be more sustained for the industry itself, right? So as we have reached the end of our scheduled time, we will now bring this session to a close. Okay, on behalf of the organizer, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to Mr. Lim Wei Hung for sharing his extensive 20 years experience and his valuable insight on turning ESG into a competitive advantage. I also like to thank our Professor Dr. Irene Ting Wei Kiong for her opening remarks, and all of you, our participants, for your active engagement today. And then before we end, I think maybe I can invite every one of you to turn on your camera so that we can have a group photo maybe. Okay. Okay. You see some of my friends already switch on the camera. Still waiting for others. Okay, so everybody, smile. Okay. Gonna try to get the picture, the bigger picture from here. Okay. Thank you to all. Okay. So we hope the knowledge shared today will be beneficial to your professional growth and our project. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mera.
Thank you. Thank you,
Prof.
Mr. Lee. Good night.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Mr. Lim. Thank you, Mara.
Thank you, Prof.
Same.